How's it going, everyone? I am Jeremy Alexander, and welcome to How to Make a Facebook Game with Construct 2. Now, this is going to be easier than you think, and all I'm going to do is show you what Construct 2 can do for you and how easy it is to upload to Facebook. So what we're going to do is we're going to make a file, new project, and we're going to scroll all the way down to new landscape HD empty project 720p and hit OK. So this is going to make our layout 1280. Oh, it's going to make our window size 1280 by 720, and our layout size is a little bit bigger than that, so we have more room to work with. But basically, all of our game is going to be right within the window. And what we're going to do is we're just going to make something very simple. It's not going to be a game. It's just going to be moving left and right and jumping. Just very simple stuff, but enough to show you that Construct 2 is very easy. And not only is it easy with developing games, but it's also easy with exporting. And that's what we're going to do. So I'm going to actually jump forward to developing my layout. So that way I just kind of skip over that and we can just add our behaviors and make our game kind of just interact a little bit, and then we're going to focus on actually uploading to Facebook. So stay tuned and I'll be right back. All right, welcome back. So you're probably thinking, wow, a lot has changed. And in reality, no, a lot hasn't changed. The artwork is really crisp and it's really nice to deal with. So it kind of makes it feel like a very full-featured game already. But what I really did here was I made 4 layers. Now, for the free version of Construct 2, that's all you're limited to. So I made sure not to go over 4. And what I did and what I'm going to do here is in my View tab, I'm going to turn Translucent and Active Layers. So as it actually says right there, all layers apart from the active one will only show up with a 33% opacity, or whatever it said. There we go. So now if I click on this layer, you can only see you can primarily see at 100% opacity what is going on in this layer. So let me just walk you through this and we'll get to actually programming. So on our background layer, and I can also turn these off here. On our background layer, I have a tile map object. Actually, no, I'm sorry. I have a tiled background object. I have 2. I have a background. Let me unlock it here. I have our star background, and a tiled background, what it does is it lets us stretch and scale, and it'll automatically tile. So as long as your image can loop, it'll actually tile and be seamless. Now I have the same thing for our mountains here. If I keep going here and I just keep stretching these out, they will also seamlessly tile, which is really cool. But I'm fine with this because our window size, our entire game is like about this big here. So all of this is just kind of extra. Now let's go to my tile map. Let's turn that off. Let's go to my tile map and let's unlock that. Now tile map is just like a level editor. So it's basically something that you would see in Tiled, the program, which is another free program that'll help you do this. And there's actually a feature to import a tiled map from the program Tiled, but there's also a built-in tiled editor, which you can open up by going to View, and you can type in the tile map bar, or not type in, you just click, check it on or off. And what you're going to do here is you're going to select your tile map and you're going to pick the size of the sprites. Now in this case, if I scroll all the way down, my sprites were 64 by 64. Then I can take the draw tool here and I can pick 64 by 64 tiles, and I can start to go to town and paint on my tile map, which is extremely helpful. It really is extremely helpful. So I've made a very small map for us here. You can see there's really not much to it. There's no real events going on here, other than the fact that there's a bridge over lava, there's water, and I don't know if we're actually going to clear this jump or not, but we're going to start over here and we're going to make our way to the lava. So this is pretty much our level design. Cool, so those are tile maps, and always when you're using tile maps, make sure you go back to the normal mouse over here. Then what I have is I have a collision layer. Now this collision layer we have not programmed yet, but I have a collision object, which we also have not named yet, that has an alpha of 55 on the actual sprite. And this sprite will let us actually just do our collision for every single object, whether it's a jump through or whether it's just our solid floor for our player to be on. That's what this layer is going to handle. And I like to separate this especially from the tile map because it'll get in the way otherwise, and you'll start to click the tile map, and it's a whole thing if you put it on the same layer. Then we have our player right here. Now let me actually show these off. And our player is just this little alien pig guy who's standing up, and he looks pretty cool. And I've also equipped him with 2 animations, an idle animation and a walking animation that we're going to be using. And that is our setup for our game. So real fast, let me just turn all of these back on and let me hit play, and you can see what our game kind of looks like, or what it's going to look like. And you can see our collision object right there, and obviously we're going to hide that, but basically what we want to be able to do is move around this layout, and we want to put this on Facebook. So that's going to be the plan, so let's get to it. Before we start to program, we need to add some behaviors. Now, Construct 2 runs off of behaviors, and it's really powerful. So what I'm going to do here is I'm going to grab our player. I'm going to actually prefix it by calling it object_player, just so I know what it is when it comes time to code. And I'm going to scroll down. Now, you can see here in my properties window that I have a behaviors dropdown that if I click this, it's going to give me this object player behaviors. What kind of behaviors would you like your player to have? Now, if I hit add here, you can see the behaviors that come with, and you can see that there's a long list, plus I have some plugins that you can download on the Construct 2 forums, on the Skira forums. But what I want to do here is I just want to add and type in the platform behavior. Now, this is the default platform behavior, and it's going to give our player some gravity and some acceleration and a lot of other stuff. It's going to let us use the arrow keys by default, and it's going to let us jump by default. And one other cool thing, there's also a double jump toggle, which is really awesome right out of the box. But we need to make this complete with an object collision, with our collision object on our collision layer. So I'm going to grab Sprite 2, and you know what? I'm going to turn off my tile map bar just so we can see our objects a little bit closer. And I'm going to prefix this with object and call this collision. Now that we have our collision object, I'm going to do the same thing. Scroll down to our behaviors, and I'm going to add a new behavior of solid, which is right here at the top. And that way, this platform will now hit the solid, and it'll actually stop from falling into a bottomless pit. So what we're going to do here is just going to zoom into our game, and I'm going to unlock our collisions layer just so we can see what's going on here. Now, usually, because we have translucent inactive layers, you can see. But since I've actually made this sprite with an alpha, when I filled it in here, I actually lowered down the alpha. All it's going to kind of look like the same. But what I'm going to do here is I'm going to drag this over. Then I'm going to hold down Control and click, and that's going to copy this object. Now I'm going to put this everywhere where I want our player to actually collide. So it's going to be around here, and it's going to be here as well. Now we're going to need a different collider for a diagonal, but that's okay because we can come back to that, and we can also come back to our actual jump throughs. Actually, you know what? Let's do the jump through now. So now that we've copied these, we have our collision, but what we really need to do is we need to make a jump through collision. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to right click and clone this object type. So now we have another collision object, collision 2, but this is going to be a completely separate and individual object so that it can hold its own behavior. So I'm actually going to go to its behaviors and remove it. I'm going to destroy the solid behavior. I'm going to add a new one, and I'm going to call this one jump through and hit OK, and this by default will automatically be a jump through solid block. So now, again, this is object collision 2, which is cloned from object collision, but this behavior has jump through and this one has solid. So I'm going to put this one right where my jump through would be, which would not be over here, it would be up there. Then I'm going to control and copy that as well. Oops, I did it twice. Let me control copy and make this a little bit smaller. I also have show grid and snap to grid turned on with a width of 64 by 64 because that's how big these pixels are. So I'm going to control click again, and then we'll come back and we'll do the collider for this. This is actually a very simple collider, and it doesn't really matter at this point because it'll kind of hit there and then jump. So for right now, our demonstration can actually work without it, but if you did want to make another collision object for it, it would just be a diagonal collider, which would just be another sprite that has pretty much just this portion cut off. So you would just kind of cut off a little bit of this over here until it was a straight diagonal. So let me exit out of this, and we'll come back to that at the end. But what we can do here is we can hit play, and just like that, right out of the box, you can see our collision objects are there, and we can actually move with the arrow keys and jump, which is really cool. Let's see if I can jump all the way over there, and I can't. So just because I can't, what I'm going to do really quickly here is I'm going to up a few things. I'm going to go down here to our options. I'm going to up our jump strength from 650. I'm going to put that at 850 and see if I can make it. I'm also going to give us a higher speed. I'm going to go to 550. This is kind of ridiculous. And you know what? I'm going to give us one other thing here. I'm going to turn our double jump on by hitting just double jump enabled. So now when I hit the up arrow twice, it'll actually jump twice. Cool. So now, there we go. Our double jump works, and I made it over here. Now let's look at our jump through. And that's going to be allowing me to go like that, which is really cool, and like that, and like that, and like that. Awesome. So our double jump works right out of the box. So do our jump through platforms, which is really handy, and so does our collision. And now we just have a few other things to program here, such as maybe just a little bit of a scroll to so we can actually get to the lava area, and just a few things for our animations and flipping. So let's do that. Okay, so to begin programming, what we need to do is we need to add an actual input object. Now to do this, what we need to do is double click, and just like we would add a sprite or a tiled map or a tiled background, we're going to add the keyboard input. Now once we're done with that, we can actually go to our event sheet and begin to program here. So what we're going to do is we're going to add the event. Now technically, with our platform object, we already have our keyboard controls working, but we don't have it working the way we need it to. So what we're going to do is we're going to go into our keyboard and we're going to find out if our key is down. Now this window is going to pop up, click to choose, and once I click that, I can actually pick what key by hitting it on the keyboard that I want to actually control. So I'm going to say right arrow key and hit OK. Then I'm going to hit Control C, Control V while it's selected, and I'm going to double click on this condition and flip it. So I'm just going to re-edit that one to be the left arrow. Now that I have that, and since this is already programmed in for us, we're already moving left and right, I just need to handle it flipping. So to actually flip our player, I'm going to add the action. So let's look at our player. Our player's facing to the right. So for the right, we don't need it to be mirrored. So I'm going to go to our player, and I'm going to type in set mirrored. I'm going to hit OK, and I'm going to turn this to not mirrored. Then what I can do, and this is a handy shortcut, just like I do in the layout, I can hit Control and drag this down to copy it. I'm going to say mirrored for the left arrow. So now when I hit save and when I hit play, you can actually see our player flipping. And since I actually put the origin of this sprite to the bottom, let me show you that really fast. So when you look at this, you can see that it's flipping from the bottom. Now if I put this up here, it'll flip from the top left. So it always flips from the origin point, but now we actually have our player mirroring left and right. Okay, so now that we actually have the functionality working where we're flipping left and right and we're actually jumping and moving around the layout, we actually just need to add a little bit more functionality with the animations. So this is where our event sheet comes in, and since we already have our check for if our keyboard right arrow and left arrow is down, all we need to do is add in a way for our animation to be set. Now this is going to be the easy way of doing it. I'm going to add the action to our player to set the animation to be our ID_walk. Now I'm going to hit Control and copy this down to our left arrow. Now there are other ways of doing it, but this way will work for right now. I'm going to hit save and I'm going to hit play. So now when we actually look at this game here, you can actually see, there we go, we're kind of animating a little bit, but this isn't working the way we really had in our mind. You know, the animation's still playing when I let go. It's not working. So what I need to do, and this is a little bit of a trick here, is if I go to Object Player and I go to our walk animation, since it has 15 frames, which is a lot, I'm going to actually go to my properties and change the speed from 5 to 30. I'm going to hit exit and I'm going to hit save. And now when I walk left and right, you can actually see me walking at a normal speed. At least it's not exactly normal, but it's a lot faster than what it was. But you can also see here that we actually have a few other things to add. And you'll notice that I added a few other animations for us, and they're pretty much just frames. They're not animations. We have our jump and we have our fall, which will look really cool. So what we're going to do is we're going to implement those. And what I'm going to do that is I'm actually going to be using another keyboard control. So let me copy and paste this, because this way I can actually just grab this without having to make a new event. And I can actually just get rid of that one. And I'm going to actually double click on this condition. I'm going to hit back. And this is a good way to know the Construct2 editor. And instead of being down, what I want to find out is if the key was pressed. So only if it was tapped. And in this case, I want to know if it's the up arrow. Now, all of these keys are already mapped to the platform behavior, but we're just adding extra functionality to it. So what I'm going to do here is very simply change the animation from walk to jump and hit OK and hit save. Now, when I hit play, we should be able to see a jump. There we go. A jump animation. But now we kind of have an issue here. When I jump and then I land, it doesn't, kind of looks really funny. So let me actually go back and let's fix that as well. Now, so far, all we've done is keyboard functions. So what I'm going to do here is I'm going to add a new event, and I'm actually going to go to our player. So instead of going to our keyboard, I'm going to go to our player and create an event from there. Now, our platform behavior, and every behavior that you add is going to get its own little section here for any object that you have that has that behavior. So you're going to add on to what is already there, which all this stuff is default, and then if you add these behaviors, they're going to pop up as well. In this case, what I want to know is if our player is falling. So we're going to find where it says is falling. That's different from on fall. This is going to say when the object is actually falling, whereas this is going to say only as it starts to fall. So we're going to say if our player is falling, what's going to happen? Well, we're going to control click this down and set the animation to be ID fall. Just like this. And did I spell something wrong? No, I forgot a quotation mark, and then hit OK. And then the last bit is to actually have our player be idle. So now there is one other thing I want to do with our idle, but first I'm going to actually add a condition that has two checks to make before it's actually fired off. So what we're going to do here is we can actually copy this. We can copy and paste. And what we're going to do is we're going to double click on this and we're going to switch it. We're going to say if our platform is on the floor. Now that I have this, we're not going to set our animation to fall. We're going to set it to idle. Now we actually need one other thing here, because you'll notice if I hit save and if I hit play, and let me actually show you our falling animation. So there we go. Now we're actually falling. But what we want to do is we want to be blinking, and that we're actually blinking because we're on the floor. But you're going to notice something that's a little bit weird, where it could actually happen where if I'm not moving, that it'll actually start to blink. And actually you can see right here, our because we're on the floor, it's taking over our walk animation. So now we don't actually have one. So what we need to do here is we need to put in one extra check. So I'm going to click on this event, and I'm going to hit C on the keyboard to add another condition for our player. And I'm going to check is moving. So now what I need to do here is I'm checking to see if our platform is moving, or if our platform is on the floor. And what I want to do is flip this. I want to say if it's not moving. And to do that, I'm going to select this condition and hit I on the keyboard to pop up the X, which is going to say not moving. So if our platform's on the floor, but it's not moving, then set the animation to idle. Whereas these will be fired off if it is actually moving. So let me hit save and let me hit play. And now if I'm actually, there we go, I can move again. And if I let go, there we go, I'm blinking in both directions. Now, that is pretty much all we needed to do for our player, because now we actually have the control we need. There's one other thing that I want to add to this, which if I go to the layout here, and if I go, I'm going to add one more behavior to our player. I'm going to go all the way down here, and again, right out of the box, I'm just going to add the scroll to behavior. Now, there's other ways of doing this as well. You can make your own camera object, but by default, this is going to let me scroll around the map. So now if I go over here, you can see I'm scrolling, and you can see this area where we don't have a diagonal collider, but that's okay. And now I can actually go to this part of the map. Now you're going to notice that I kind of ran out of space there. I should probably make some more tiles there. But this will work out very well for us, and this will actually make it so we can actually move around the entire level. Now the only other thing that I want to fix here is I want to go to our player, and I want to change our values here. We can leave our jump strength at 850, but I'm going to change our speed to be a little bit lower. Let's go back to 350 there, and let's hit save. And there's a bunch of other values that you can start messing around with. You can make some gravity things happen, which could be cool. And let's see there. There's a few things there's a few other things that you might need to change here. Like I'm noticing when we're actually holding down our jump and our moving, that we're kind of moving at the same time, but you get the point. The whole point is to put this onto Facebook versus anything else, and that's what we're going to be doing next. So let's start that. Real fast before we go to Facebook, what I wanted to do is just kind of fix what we had broken, which is I didn't make the map long enough, and also I added the fix for our little jumping error here. So if our player is not on the floor, but it is moving, but it's not falling, then set it to ID jump, and that actually fixed it really nicely. So let me actually grab our player here. Before I test that for you, I'm just going to add one other behavior here. I'm going to go down to our behaviors and add a bound to layout. That way we can't actually leave the scene. That's always a good one to have. And then what I also want to do here is I want to turn off the visibility of our collision objects. Now you can do this two ways. You can actually just change the initial visibility to invisible, and that's going to work just fine. Or if you have the personal edition or greater, you can actually add a family, which is just going to be exactly what it is. It's a family. It's like the parent object. And what you can do is you can call this our collision family or whatever you want to call it. And this can also have the initial visibility. You can turn that off in code as well. So those are two ways of doing it. And I don't actually have the time to show it to you, but that is one way of doing it. And I'll just do it this way just so we can all do it very quickly. We're just going to turn off the visibility of both of these. So now we can actually do that and hit save and hit play. And now we can't see the collision objects. And now when I actually move and hold down jump, I can actually jump, and there we go. everything looks cool. And we can also fall too, which was another bug that you might have encountered. But there we go. So everything's working really nicely. Our game looks pretty crisp and good, and it's really just us moving around. It's just a nice, simple project with Construct 2. And in reality, I made that in 10 minutes, which is really nice. Oh, look, the little double jump. I forgot we left that in there. And because we're bound to the layout, we can kind of do this little flying thing. That's kind of funny. But you can mess around with it. You can mess around with the gravity in the world. There's so many things you can do just to make your actual game. But now let's actually go to Facebook and just put this live. All right, so now I'm on Facebook. I'm on developers.facebook.com/apps. And what I'm going to do here is I'm going to create a new app. Now, once I'm done with that, I'm going to give it a name. I already have a name right there, jump to save the world. And I don't need to give it a namespace, so I'm just going to move forward by giving our app a category. Now I'm going to pick the games category because that's what it is. And, you know, we are saving the world, so I guess we'll put it as an action game. Now I'm going to hit create app ID. I'm going to fill out the security check here. Pick all that are tigers, tiger, and hit submit. And then it should take me to my dashboard. Cool. So now that I'm on my dashboard here, there's two things that you need to look at. It's the app ID and the app secret. So we have both of these right here. This app is in development mode and can only be used by app admins, developers, and testers. Cool. So what I'm going to do here is I'm going to grab my app ID, and I'm actually going to go to Construct 2, and I'm going to double click and add a new object. Now this object is all the way at the bottom, and it is called platform specific. It's for our Facebook app. So I'm going to double click on that. And now we're adding the Facebook object to Construct 2. Now, this is how easy it is. Since we already know where to find our app ID and our app secret, now if I click on this object here and bring up the properties, and you can see if I click off of it, I won't have those properties. But if I click it again, there's my app ID and there's my app secret. So let me put my app ID right there. Let me go to Facebook and let me grab my app secret. Let me hit show and let me copy this and let me put this into my app secret and hit OK. So my app secret will let me submit scores, and my app ID is going to be the same ID as my project ID. So any time that you export, you always want to make sure you have at least two things filled out. Let me show you. Click on your layout or just anywhere. And then in your project properties window, go to project properties and hit view. And I've already started to fill these things out, but the two things that you must have at the minimum is a description of your app. You should have a name, the description of your app, and the ID. Now, usually I do an ID which is a reverse domain name. It would be .com, but it would be like my website, jerementor.com or something like that. But what we need to do for a Facebook ID, since we already have our ID from here, is we need to take this ID and we need to put it where this is. Now this is only for Facebook, and this is just so it recognizes the ID, but there we go. We are good to go. Okay, so now that we have that done, what we're going to do is we're going to export our project as an HTML5 website. Facebook's going to run it in Canvas, which is how pretty much HTML5 works. It's how HTML5 runs on your web browser in a Canvas tag. So what we're going to do is we're going to export it as an HTML5 website. I'm going to make a new folder for this and onto my desktop, and I actually want to put this onto my desktop. I'm going to make a new folder, and I'm going to call this, what am I going to call this? I'm going to rename this and call this Facebook Game. I'm going to hit OK, and I'm going to hit next, and then right now I'm just going to hit export. Cool. So while it's doing that, what we're going to do is we're going to be uploading it to Dropbox. Now, this is the part that I have found to be a little bit annoying, because if you don't have a Dropbox account that was made before 2013, you won't have access to the Dropbox public folder unless you pay for Dropbox Pro. Unfortunately, I haven't found another alternative that is equivalent to it, because your website, your URL needs to be secure. I tried Google Drive, but it didn't want to work. Your website needs to be secure, whatever link that you're hosting it to. So if you have access to a website, you can upload to your own website, and as long as you have an HTTPS and HTTPS, yeah, I said that correctly, and something like that as before your domain, you should be fine and you should be able to upload this. But let me show you how this works for Dropbox Public, and hopefully you can make that work. So what I'm going to do here, and I already have an older version of it there, but what I need to do, since I just updated everything, is I need to find where that file is. There it is, Facebook Game. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to just drag this into my Dropbox Public folder, and it's going to upload. So let me double click on this and we can watch as it uploads. Now, excuse me, what it's going to do is it's going to upload all of these files that are in here, obviously, and this index.html file is technically editable, and you can actually add in HTML tags that will include like buttons or anything that Facebook provides for you. You have to edit that index.html on your own. Right now, we just want to get this uploaded versus anything else. So I'm going to walk you through that. But in the future, if you do go back, you can add all of your stuff right to that index.html file. You can pull that down, you can put it into Notepad++ or anything that you can to edit the index.html file, and you should be good to go. So the whole point of using Dropbox public folder and why you would need Dropbox Pro is to grab the public link. So I'm going to make sure that I have index.html selected. I'm going to copy the public link, and I'm going to hit Control-C. Now, once I have that, I can go over back to Jump to Save the World onto developers.facebook.com/apps. And on here, I'm going to actually add the application. Now, you're going to notice that I actually had to re-record this a little bit here. My recording kind of stopped, so I apologize, but it's the same thing, so don't worry if these IDs are different from what we just did. But what we're going to do is go into our settings, and we're going to actually add a platform for our game. We're going to choose Facebook Canvas, and then we're going to paste in the link we just copied, and we're going to add a question mark at the end because that's what Facebook needs to recognize that this is a secure domain on top of it being an HTTPS. So we're going to hit Save Changes, and after we do that, then it's going to say that it's saved. We have to go to our app details, and we have to fill out all of these app details. So make sure that you do that. Make sure you add that this is the Jump to Save the World game, and that the tagline is, "He jumped and saved the universe." And then just fill out all the information. If you have any explanations that you can and cannot do for users, put that in there. Contact info is probably the most important. I think the most important is your email, so make sure that you put your email in there. Add some icons, add some cover images and stuff like this. You don't have to add all of them most likely, you just have to add a few, and make sure you save your changes. Then once you are done with that, go to Status and Review. And in Status and Review, you're going to hit Start a Submission. Now, if you pick App Details, that's exactly what we just did right here, or what I half did. So make sure you start a submission, and you add your details by clicking on Add App Details, add that one item, and then you'll be able to submit your game. Now, there is no way to test it that I am aware of, so you kind of just have to submit it, and then it should go live in a day or so, whenever it takes them to review it, and then your game will be good to go on Facebook. It is very easy to actually integrate into Facebook from Construct 2 once you have your app ID and your app secret. Now, let me show you something real fast on Construct 2, if I can go back to Construct 2 here. And what I wanted to show you is this. If we make a new event here, if we double click and go to our Facebook and make a new event, you're going to be given all these conditions, which are really helpful. And this is only going to work once your Facebook object has the same app ID and secret ID with the one that you have received from Facebook. So what you can do here is you can actually, this is how you would do your high score, and that's why you need your secret ID. And this is how you can do everything else. You can say if Facebook is ready, then what's going to happen? You could say Facebook, log the person in, and then you can figure out how that works. There's other tutorials on how that works, as well as Facebook comes with a very well-documented guide on adding all of these features, but it's actually very simple with Construct 2 right here. You can do so many things. You can prompt a wall post, which is really cool, or you could do, and that doesn't even require a permission. You can just have Facebook pop up that alert box that says, hey, you should post this on a wall, or hey, you should share this link. So that's pretty cool that this is all built in with Construct 2 Facebook object, and you can publish your high scores and stuff right there as well. So that's one thing that you should always keep in mind that Construct 2 has. This is a very easy way to make a game, get it up and running, and then actually submit it to Facebook or something like that and integrate Facebook with your game. So there's other things that we could do and go over, but I do hope that this gave you just the basic beginner knowledge that you needed in case you didn't have that to actually make a Facebook game with Construct 2. Thank you so much for watching. I do hope that you learned something new. I am Jeremy Alexander, and I'll see you next time.